Magandang gabi sa inyo dyan sa Manila. Kamusta po kayong lahat dyan? Hopefully everything is okay. And good evening, North America. Welcome to another Zoom encounter hosted by the Upsilon Climate Action Network. Tonight, we have a very interesting topic to discuss entitled Saving Our Planet One Inspection at a Time, and with an equally very interesting and brilliant speaker to discuss this subject matter. This forum is actually a great way to interact and connect with all groups, whether they are formally or informally organized, so long as they are involved in addressing, finding, and disseminating informations and solutions to climate changes. Remember, we all belong to one and only one planet Earth, and we have the shared responsibility to protect and safeguard Mother Nature. If we don't do anything about it, if we don't take the lead taken by the UCAN or the Upsilon Climate Action Network, I'm sorry and sad to say, we will all lose in this battle against climate change. So, for and in behalf of the Upsilon Sigma Phi of North America, again, welcome everybody. Just sit tight, relax, enjoy the seminar, and I guarantee you, before the seminar ends, you will be learning a lot about climate change and how you can make this earth a better place to live in. To those living in the US of A or United States of America, my warmest and heartfelt happy Thanksgiving to you all. God bless us all, and good night and good morning. Thank you.
The Philippines is one of the mega-diverse countries of the world, containing two-thirds of the Earth's biodiversity and between 70% and 80% of the world's plant and animal species. Yet, our ocean is facing tremendous anthropogenic pressures. Overfishing, illegal fishing, pollution, and destruction of livelihoods and marine habitats through unabated coastal development projects. This session will discuss Oceana's role in restoring ocean abundance through science-based and inclusive fisheries management systems to rebuild fisheries in the Philippines. Our speaker is Gloria Golly Estenzo-Ramos. She is a Sigma Delta Phi Mariang awardee and is the Vice President of Oceana and a member of its executive committee. She leads Oceana's team of campaigners, lawyers, and marine scientists in the Philippines to effect national policies that ensure sustainable fisheries management, improving enforcement and transparency, protecting marine habitats, and fighting marine pollution. Ocean victories include the protection of Philippine rice, mainstreaming participatory and science-based fisheries management, and adoption of vessel monitoring rules for all commercial fishing vessels. Before leading Oceana, since it established its office in the Philippines in 2014, Attorney Gloria Ramos was a Southeast Asia representative to the International Union of Conservation of Nature Academy of Environmental Law Governing Board. She was a faculty member of the University of Cebu's College of Law. She co-founded the Philippine Earth Justice Center, a nonprofit which institutes environmental cases and promotes good governance while assisting in stakeholders' compliance with environmental laws. Among the prominent environmental cases she was involved in was stopping the offshore oil drilling project in the largest marine protected area in the country, the Tanyon Strait Protected Seascape. The Supreme Court declared the project in 2015 as unconstitutional. Let us all welcome Gloria Ramos for her talk today. Thank you. Over to you, Gloria.
Thanks so much, Brad Carlo, and Thanks so much to our brothers Upsilon for this very meaningful Climate Action Network series, a much needed um, information enhancing platform for all. And I fully agree with Brajuri Katibog that protecting our planet is a shared responsibility. And I thank Norman for making it possible for me to be participating in today's great event. And he very well provided the background of my talk, which is why we need to protect the Philippines Ocean and the people solely dependent on healthy and vibrant ocean for sustenance. So I will now share my presentation here. Okay. Okay. Oops. So this is a question addressed to you. After my talk, I would like to hear your voice, your thoughts on um whether we have progress in the new millennium. But before anything else, I want to thank my brothers and sis, and Oceana and my own family who's here. Former dean of the UC College of Law, Baldomero Estenzo, has been the wind beneath my wings and as is a big influence. And thank you, Manay, for being here. Okay, so this would be the outline of my presentation. We need to know what's happening in the country and what's happening among stakeholders, including civil society organizations, fisher folk organizations, but there's still the need for everyone to participate and in this shared responsibility to protect our only home planet. So, Oceana is an international non government organization, the only one focused on marine conservation. So, we are really on mainstreaming science based policies, ensure food security, which is so important in our country, protect our key marine habitats, and stop ocean pollution. So in 2014, Oceana in the Philippines was established, and I'm privileged to be the first, the one leading these very noble organizations from inception when it established its office in 2014. So we are, Oceana is in 30% of the countries which are the sources of the wild fish catch. And why Philippines? Because we're one of the top exporting countries in the world. 3% of food production, global marine fish catch, comes from the Philippines, and this was based on the FAO statistics. So our banner is Save the Oceans, Feed the World, and this attracted me. Just the slogan alone attracted me to Oceana because this reverberates in what is needed in the country, the need for sustainable management, improvement of enforcement, mainstreaming transparency, and protection of our fragile marine habitats, and of course, the livelihoods of our people. We are highly dependent on our ocean for survival, for sustenance, for recreation, for nutrition. And looking at the state of the world fisheries, the stocks, the fish populations are really in decline globally. And it's not just in the Philippines, but globally. And climate change has really threatened livelihood of many, and of course, the species of fish uh, that we depend on, and the key marine habitats. So we have to do something to protect it. And apart from that, just last September, the Philippines became the top notcher in the World Risk Index, meaning as to vulnerability, susceptibility, adaptation. We are extremely weak in this area. And when it comes to environmental defenders, we are the top notcher in Asia for having the most number of environmental defenders killed. So not exactly a badge of honor for us. And we are highly dependent on fish. And this is a scientific study made. We rank second to Indonesia for all dependencies, whether economic, coastal protection. We rank number one, and other needs. And as mentioned by Carlo, we are a highly biodiverse country. We are part of 7 countries which are considered as Coral Triangle countries, which holds 2/3 of the world's richest coral reefs. And the Philippines is the center of marine biodiversity in the entire world. And that center of the center of the center is is the VIP, uh, Verde Island Passage. But what is happening? This is a map of the overfished areas in the Philippines. The brighter ones are very heavily exploited. And on the right side, this was from the stock assessment of Fisheries Management Area 8. This is in Leyte, part of Surigao. Um, the species of fish of commercial value are almost all in red, which is beyond the reference point, the target reference point. They're already in the reference point, which means they're in a precarious state. So we really have to do something about it. And for plastic, as Carlo mentioned, he also is ranked number 3 in the world for having the most for having a country with mismanaged plastic waste. Nakakahiya na sa totoo lang. And considering that we are considered an ecological superpower by the former US ambassador to the Philippines, Kenny. So this is the data we called from PSA, declining fish catch. It's not updated. So it's also one of the reasons why we need to be more involved. We need more updated records as basis for decision making. We are data deficient. And this void is the reason why arbitrariness still prevails in decision making. And as you can see, our fisher folks and farmers remain the poorest of the poor. How can that be when we are considered as so wealthy when it comes to our marine resources and biodiversity? Oceana likewise commissioned EMRAG Asia Pacific, which collaborated with the DOST, FNRI, to study the fish and nutrition systems in the Philippines. This was fairly recent, and I can share you the link or you can Google it. And it is disheartening. Um, the colored portion are the poorest, and you can see these are provinces in Central Visayas and in Mindanao. And uh, if you look at the most overexploited areas, they would correlate. And sorry, I just got this from the in the policy dialogue that we had with DOST. Um, I screenshot this that we Filipinos are highly dependent on consumption. Something like 42.2% of total animal protein intake and 18.3% of total protein intake. So napaka-importante sa atin ang seafood. And there has been a decline in seafood consumption. And that's alarming. Why? Because of the nutrients that we get. And also it shows the extent of degradation happening in our waters.
Sorry.
Among fisher folk-headed households, just look at the statistics. For children 0 to 5 years old and 5 years old and up, Look at this stunting 37.7, underweight 26.4%. And for those over 5 years old, underweight 39.9, stunting 39.9. And you can just imagine how this impacts their physical, social, mental well being. So when we ask ourselves, are we doing enough for our children? And children in coastal communities and other areas, we are not. So how I wish the budget goes to our um to those in the depressed communities. Sorry, I don't know why I cannot move. Oops, naghang siya. Okay. Maybe I'll okay, there. And food insecure. Who are the how many of Filipinos are food insecure? My goodness, it's 56%. More than half of Filipinos are food insecure. And you talk of food security always during election campaigns. But where's the budget for food security? Where's the budget for sustainable management of our fisheries, of our forests? This is really appalling record. And we have forgotten how nutritionally important fish is. And if we can just have this as main source of our animal protein, we will be addressing food security. We will be addressing nutritional security because it offers the essential fatty acids, vitamins, minerals for our young children, for young mothers, for lactating mothers, pregnant women. So we need to put this on as part of our campaigns, and we are doing that. So according to FAO, this is from the profile of the Philippines, we have the 12th largest wild capture fishery production in the world. Roughly 45% of stocks of our fish are collapsed. But if you look at the national stock assessment, it's more than that. And catches are declining. But there's still possibility of improvement. And this is the hopeful part I'm telling you, I'm sharing with you. The loss, oh my gosh, we are world class producers of environmental laws. Napakagaling natin. Pati constitution natin, 1987 constitution, andyan lahat. Right to healthful balanced ecology, right to health, right to participation in decision making, and state with the duty to protect our marine wealth. So all of these are here. I'll just skip this. And when we came in 2014, this is what we saw: pervasive, illegal, unregulated, unreported fishing, overfished, fishing grounds, very weak enforcement, and continuing destruction of fishing and habitat. Paano ba ito? Climate change exacerbates all of these impacts. Anong mangyari sa atin? And these are among the reasons why government really needs support and partnership from private sector and civil society organizations from close coordination with government agencies. We notice they don't talk with each other. They're not good at that, so they need a platform, and we provide that platform for policy dialogues, and we have been very successful in doing that. Data deficiency, we are helping government provide the science, provide the technology as basis for policy making. So there will be more public participation because it is provided in the law. It's a constitutional right. And there has to be transparency in governance. Kailangan. And then lack of capacity of staff. Do you know Oceana does enforcement training for our enforcers, for our prosecutors, for our judges, so that they can appreciate how important it is to have sustainable management of our fisheries. So we came in, we also ask our people. So we work with social weather stations in 2017 to ask if people know the extent of degradation happening in our waters. And this is the result. They know pollution is a big problem. Illegal fishing is a big problem likewise, and climate change. And we came in at the most perfect time. EU, which is one of the biggest buyers of our fish and fishery products, slap a yellow card warning to the Philippines government. What's yellow card? It is telling government, shape up or you will not be allowed to export your fish and fish products. So, matamaan yung packets, aaksyon agad, 'di ba? Nag-aksyon. Uh, and perfect timing nga, 2015. And we were still, Oceana was still able to help in crafting the implementing rules and regulations. Napakaganda. Vessel monitoring system, increased penalties, may no restraining order for enforcement of fisheries laws. Pero vina-violate ng some courts. Kaya nag-capacity training talaga kami for judges. There's citizens to provision. Citizen has every right to sue if there's improper, unlawful implementation of our fisheries code and protection from harassment suits. In US, it's called strategic lawsuit against public participation. So we've been using this to empower our enforcers and also our advocates that they should use this as a defense to dismiss cases filed against them for advocating for better environment. And I am a survivor of that. I was sued by the governor of Cebu for instituting environmental cases for them to enforce the law. 7 years after, it was dismissed based on my availment of this legal remedy. And ito yung ginagawa talaga namin sa mga enforcers. Huwag kayong matakot. Do you know they're being sued something like 20 cases, 40 cases for apprehending vessels which some say belong to some members of Congress, some who are elective officials. So, and we have helped them. We really go out of our way to support our enforcers. Yung isa, finailan siya ng maraming kaso, pinatanggal sa pwesto niya as PNP, member of PNP Maritime Group. We provided the legal basis for the dismissal of this really harassment suit, and we wrote the head of the DILG, Secretary Anyo, that this is pure and simple, baseless harassment suit. At maraming salamat sa nakaintindi, dinismiss yung kaso. Pero many are not enforcing kasi takot sila ma-file ng kaso and they don't have lawyers to support them. So ito yung mga realities on the ground. Kaya talagang importante gamitin ang batas to change behaviors at unblinking. Talagang porsigido na mapaayos natin ang ating sistema. So ito yung aming formula. And this has been very helpful for us to achieve the goals and to have better management of our fisheries. Using the law, we have very progressive laws. Hindi tayo magka-problema when it comes to using our laws. We have the OPOSA ruling, which the Supreme Court in 1993, way back 1993, declared as saying that children have every right to sue for their future. In the United States, you have to prove direct injury. Sa atin, hindi kailangan. So it's also in the rules of procedure for environmental cases. So napaka-progresibo ng legal system natin. Hindi rason na hindi ma-implement ang law. Then science. This has to be fully ingrained in the mindset of decision makers. And I just had an opportunity to talk with the OST, UPLB. They're conducting a research on how Oceana and other stakeholders are simplifying science and the law to become effective communicators. Ang ginagawa namin talaga, tinatagalog namin. Kasi kung mag-English tayo, automatically marginalized ang mga sectors who have had no access to education. Yung aming mga materials, may translation kami to Cebuano, Waray, Tagalog para maintindihan at alam nila that the law is on their favor and science is supporting their the plight to have better management. Media, um, we are a social media capital. So I guess we're one of the NGOs so earlier on already had social media specialists para mas wider ang ating reach at mas nakakaintindi ang karamihan. So there are four in the communications division that we have because we really believe because we it's part of our DNA to be effective communicators. And then, of course, grassroots mobilization. We work with the youth. Ang galing nila, galing sa social media. They're so enthusiastic. And it inspires you na, oh my gosh, they are really fighting for their future. And talagang kailangan suportahan sila. And we have a very strong partnership with our small-scale fisher folks. The pandemic has allowed us to closely work with them, coordinate with them, and now they are adapting the technology. Meron kaming establish na chat group sa Messenger with them. We have reached out to almost 115 fisher folk organizations in the country at napaka-united nila ngayon. They can be a powerful political base sa totoo lang. And of course, direct advocacy. Yung mga interns namin natutuwa kasi nakikita nila that we really deal directly with decision makers, national agencies, local governments, at ang dami nilang natutunan. Because it's so important for our decision makers to know what is happening on the ground, what's the law, what's the science. So, ito yung ginagawa namin. So, I just move faster henceforth. Ito yung campaigns ng Oceana are very specific, time-bound. We have our annual goals. We have our milestones that we target to reach. So, ito yung guide namin why we are fairly successful in achieving our goals. Our campaign, 2016, Protect Benhambang, 2018, President Duterte signs the presidential proclamation protecting Benhambang. So, yung ending commercial fishing in Tanyan Strait because we were new in the Philippines. Tanyan Strait is all municipal waters, the biggest marine protected seascape in the country. So dito namin na walang patrolling, walang enforcement. So we partnered with Fisher Fox LGUs, may mga champion LGUs din. And we help reactivate the Coastal Law Enforcement Alliance for Region 7. So nakita namin na it can be a model for cascading the campaign nationwide. Kaya meron na kaming nationwide campaign ngayon. And ang aming ginawa was really help capacitate local governments. And then nag-pilot testing kami ng vessel monitoring sa Tanyan Strait for local governments and fisher folks to know that the technology works and it will be very effective in fighting illegal commercial fishing. So itong Benhambang ito, this was in May 2018, President Duterte signed it. And why is Benhambang or Philippine rice important? It's perhaps the only part of the Philippines which has 100% coral cover. Coral cover na ngayon natin, on the average, is 20%. Napakababa na. We have to do something about it. And then, it's the only known spawning ground of the most expensive fish in the world, the Pacific bluefin tuna. Napakahalaga nito. So, kailangan talagang alagaan. So, yung phase 2, we are funded by Bloomberg Philanthropies. This is the Bloomberg Oceans Initiative. So, from 2019 to 2025, ito na yung aming mga kampanya. We've been able to achieve victory pero hindi kami satisfied na meron ng sardine management plan. We want it implemented. So, napakabagal ng implementation. What we're doing is go to coastal LGU alliances para sila na ang mag-implement. So, yan yung ginagawa namin. In the commercial fishing, we help government set up Karagatan Patrol. This is an online fishing. You can see VIR's satellite data showing where possible illegal fishing is happening in municipal waters. When we came in, we didn't know the extent of illegal fishing happening in the country. Walang data na updated. Walang centralized repository for this data sa ating gobyerno. And then, protecting marine or having marine protected areas is important to mitigate impacts and address climate change. So we went on an expedition to southern Leyte in Panaon Island, and we discovered 40% very good coral cover na kailangan protektahan. Two congressional representatives have filed bills to protect Panaon Island. Ito yung reclamation, deter illegal dump and fill. DILG issued strong policies reminding local governments that it is their principal responsibility to protect municipal waters. And in addition, we came up with a scorecard, citizen scorecard, to guide the decision makers as well as empower citizens to monitor if the mechanisms set by the Environmental Impact Statement System Act and other many laws to safeguard the environment is being done. And of course, we have banning single-use plastics. We this time after efforts made for the implementation of Republic Act 9003, wala talaga nangyari sa National Solid Waste Management Commission. We filed a lawsuit. And this was in October 2021. In December, Supreme Court issued the writ of kalikasan and writ of continuing banamus directing the Court of Appeals to take on the case. So it's pending. And the other is restoration of mangrove forest. Mangroves absorb carbon dioxide apart from providing nourishment, nursery to small fish, and filtering pollution, protecting us from storm surges, and a host of other ecosystem services. So this is our Karagatan Patrol. We're so proud of it. In partnership with the League of Municipalities of the Philippines, for the first time, napakita natin ano ang extent of illegal commercial fishing in municipal waters. So yung blue lines, yun na yung sa loob ng municipal waters. And well, isang gear lang ang cover dito, ang ang super lights. Banned ito. And we also show this. Veers showed yung pinakapulada sa West Philippine Sea. So when we show this to media, my gosh, nagulat sila. Grabe ang extent of fishing sa ating ano. But if you use vessel monitoring, tine-turn off yung device hindi mo makita spare, parang walang activity sa West Philippine Sea, but using veers, ito, ang tindi, yung mga red dots. And of course, in the Philippines. So, this from 2018 to 2021. Makita din natin na parang lumiliit yung extent ng kapulahan sa West Philippine Sea, but there's still a lot of fishing there. So, ito yung lawsuit. Attorney Chel Diokno represented Oceana, and Attorney Jerthy Mayoanda represented the fisher folks who went to the Supreme Court in 2018. 10 days after DAB4 moved, talagang gumalaw. As in, palaging may consultations. And we have this. But there's not a happy ending for our lawsuit. This year, we got a decision from the Supreme Court na dinismiss ang kaso. Kasi kinukumpel daw namin ang DA to perform its mandates. But in the MMDA ruling, concerned residents of Manila Bay, which was a 2008 ruling, sinabi na pag mandatory, actionable siya, pero parang nagbago ang hangin. So, but we were able to get the reforms. In the entire country now, science-based fisheries management areas. There are 12 of them na dapat may management body and advised by scientific advisory group. So we now have 12. So it started with a dream The scientists were long saying kailangan na talagang may reference points, harvest control rules. So we believe in them. We organized fisheries specialists in the country in 2016. So this started the ball rolling for this adoption. Then now we have the sardine management plan. Napaka-importante ng sardinas, lalo na sa ating mga kababayan and artisanal fisher folks. We now have the plan. This was in May 2020. Secretary Dar issued the rules. So itong fisheries management areas talaga pag susundin, talaga namang ma-rebuild natin ang fisheries. So what we did together with civil society organizations, we um, we adopted this FMA or Fisheries Management Area Compliance Scorecard or compliance report. So, ang nangyari napakabilis ng we now have 12 in 12 fisheries management bodies, now 12 of 12 scientific advisory groups as well. And sana yung ating CHED, ating DepEd will consider all of these developments kasi dapat nga mas marami na tayong fishery specialist kasi meron ng mga science-based management. Wala ngang scientific advisory group ang protected area management board but fisheries management areas meron. So in addition, because we really want to mainstream science, nag-expedition kami at the height of the pandemic. But we wanted to make sure na COVID-free ang aming expedition team members. And sa awa ng Diyos, they were able to return home after meeting two typhoons. Ano naman, COVID-free. So ito yon napakaganda for 40% coral cover. And even the most senior of scientists in our country were saying, or part of the team na, oh, we have never seen this abundance and health in our corals. And ito yung one of the 50 corals in the world na estimated to withstand the impacts of climate change. And this is facing Pacific Ocean. So ito yung we commissioned a vessel to do the scientific expedition. Dapat partner namin ang Coast Guard pero ang Coast Guard then was really utilized for COVID for the pandemic. So we also have this fighting illegal dump and fill to yung reclamation. We work closely with national agencies and we were able to secure from DILG yung reiteration of the roles of local government units in prioritizing conservation and protection of municipal waters, marine biodiversity, and even terrestrial, and protection of livelihoods of communities. So we are still very much involved in capacity building for fisher folks and communities na sila na mismo ang mag-assert because Oceana cannot be everywhere, though we are just a call away. And we push hard. May isang BFAR director na nag-issue ng, this shortcut letter of no objection when it is a principal agency mandated to ensure sustainable management of fisheries water. So we complained to the central office and the BFAR director was forced to recall his no objection note. And the latest development, EMB returned the ECC application of the Consolacion municipality. So ito yung ginawa din namin. Mahilig na kami sa scorecard ngayon. This is really one way of monitoring participation and performance of government agencies. And I believe this is what we need Ang yaman natin sa batas. Mahina ang implementasyon. Citizens should be engaged. So we share this to all, even decision makers. And in fact, fisheries management area management bodies, there are three, ito palang mga communities for the scorecards ay talagang ginamit nila. Ginamit nila sa Cebu, Consolacion, Lapu-Lapu, Cordova, at ginraid nila, bagsak lahat ang LGUs na may plano to have reclamation projects. And we're very happy that Philippine Reclamation Authority sent us a letter saying that of the 187 projects that were applied for reclamation, only around 50 had been considered, but still 50 destroying our fragile habitats. So ito na yung sa ban on single-use plastics. The reason why we went to court, klaro yung Republic Act 9003 that the National Solid Waste Management Commission as the policy-making body under that law has to come up with an annual list of non-environmentally acceptable products and packaging, which should include plastics because from the definition, hindi siya reusable, hindi siya biodegradable, decomposable, and they are toxic to the environment. Pero hanggang ngayon, wala pa rin. Though the Commission issued a resolution where 7 of these items are banned from being used in government agencies. I'm not sure kung may isang government agency na sumunod nito. Okay? So, we are also partner with local governments kasi sila talagang kawawa overwhelmed with managing an otherwise unmanageable plastic waste. So they also issued resolutions urging for banning single-use plastics from the commission. And the youth were responsible for sending the email blast to the members of the commission. So we did all of this and walang nangyari, so we filed a lawsuit. So ito na yon. Notice to sue, then we filed it. And so the takeaway really is critical collaboration with decision makers, with continuing um, constituency building, church, communities, and then, kailangan talagang magiging ano tayo, marunong mag-implement ng mga plano and call the attention of agencies which do not perform the mandates. And we do surveys, scientific expeditions, and of course, online platforms. I think we were one of the first to have online platforms at the start of the pandemic. And we have very strong alliances with various stakeholders, including the academe, the National Academy for Science and Technology was also a partner in several webinars. So ito yung gusto kong sinabi ni Tony Long. I hope you'll also look at the Global Fishing Watch website. Oceana, when this was started, Oceana was one of the um, founders of Global Fishing Watch. Now it's a separate entity, but our CEO sits as member of the board. So, technology revolution demands engagement from us all. Good governance from government, responsible for the resources, transparency from the industry exploiting them, and collaboration from the communities who rely on them. Application and interpretation from the scientists and researchers who produce new knowledge and understanding, and partnership on solutions from the NGOs who fight for the well-being of our global commons. So that's it. Maraming salamat at magandang umaga, magandang gabi sa lahat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sis Golly, for that wonderful presentation. Perhaps we could share just the front of your presentation so that we could just have a very nice visual for our open forum. One of the things that I'd like to highlight from Gloria's presentation was how important or proactive advocacy is. More often than not, it's easy to brush off the climate crisis since most people can't really connect how this relates to them. It's important to develop advocacy campaigns that effectively communicate both scientific and legal information in a digestible format. I could be wrong, but more often than not, advocacy campaigns are more effective when targeted than when produced for developed for the general population. Um, if you have any questions, please type it in the chat. But I'd like to personally begin for the discussion. Um, so of course, when we talk about the climate crisis, the impact is never equitable. I just attended a congress last a few weeks ago that they said that the people at the bottom billions are the people who have least contributed to climate change, but will bear the brunt of its consequences.
Yes.
In the national context, that's also the same. We keep on talking about fishing yield at the larger scale that involves commercial fishing. In these discussions, we often overlook the implications of climate change on subsistence fishing. So I'd just like to ask Gloria regarding what do all these imply for subsistence fishers at the peripheries who are most at risk?
Yeah, they've been saying way back in the 1990s that they were catching less fish. And para silang more than our scientists na nga na PhD holders because they're there every day. Alam nila ang changes. And they are really feeling the brunt of climate change because natatamaan sila. Their bangkas, they can no longer shelter in mangroves in areas where tinanggal ang mangroves to build malls. And they're feeling the hindi lang pinch talagang dire poverty. And this impacts the women. Alam niyo ba, some are already forced into prostitution or having their child prostituted kasi wala na silang makuha sa karagatan. Nangyari to sa Cebu. There was a news in Cordoba municipality na ginamit na instrumento yung mga bata for prostitution on the internet kasi wala na silang makuha. Yung mga ganito, these are real realities happening on the ground or in our ocean. And they know that sila talaga ang frontliners taking the brunt of the impacts of climate change. And they are the ones now asking government, what the laws are there? They are familiar with the laws. They know that municipal waters from coast up to 15 kilometers are reserved for their use, kaya bawal ang commercial fishing in municipal waters, and that's also meant to protect the fragile marine habitats. Bakit nangyayari to? Bakit nadi-displace pa rin sila? Naglalagay pa rin ng reclamation projects. So they feel that they are not being listened to. At totoo din naman. Kaya importante for CSOs and even government to really reach out to them. So Oceana on our part did a classroom for fisher folks. Ito yung because we wanted them to be active participants in the management body of this newly established fisheries management area system. We asked them, meron din kaming nag-survey kami anong gusto niyong i-take up dito sa classroom na ito. So ano yung gusto nilang malaman? So talagang from the very beginning, planning pa lang kasama na sila. And you know, that's required in our law. That's required in our constitution, the right to participate at all levels of decision making. Ito din ang kailangang gagawin. Sorry, Carla, if I jump na to anong kailangan. You know, under our constitution, local sectoral representation is guaranteed. Meaning, dapat yung ating various sectors in the community should have under the local government code na in-implement ito, should have 3 workers or 3 sectors represented in each and every sanggunian or local legislative body from the barangay, municipality, city, province na specifically mention women. Dapat andyan worker. So sana may representative from fisher folk, from farmers or workers, labor, and third, recognizing local autonomy, ang sektor ay pipiliin ng local government units concerned. But this is not being implemented. We shut the door for representation at our formal institution. So, kailangan baguhin din natin We should invite them in. Mandate yan ng constitution, which we should respect. So, excluded talaga, feeling excluded ang ating vulnerable sectors. And as data would show, nakita nyo naman, the most food insecure sector. Ano mangyari sa kanila with more typhoons? This year, for example, 2 strong typhoons. Last year, yung Odette, sila ang natatamaan. And parang magtataka ka pa, bakit yung iba nag-NPA? Kasi they feel lost. But with our hope is by inviting them in and providing the platform na makausap nila ang decision makers, the decision makers will also open their eyes to the reality. Sana yung budget for intelligence fund na 50% of the budget of the agency, ibigay nyo na yan sa community. Food security, di ba? Yun ang sinasabi nyo. So, those things, kailangan holistic. We always hear of whole of society approach. Hindi pwedeng hanggang boses lang or hanggang words. We need action. So yun yung kulang na kulang.
Yeah. I'd like to resonate about regarding the health impacts of climate change. I'm a public health professional, and I've seen in my work how the environment greatly impacts both human and animal health. So right now we're in the era of constant development, and climate change really puts pressure on both human and animal displacement, which causes increased interactions for sick animals and sick humans to have these so-called zoonotic transmissions or animal to human transmissions or infections, which is actually what they figured to be the cause of COVID-19. So
Yeah.
if we do not address the climate crisis, we could potentially see a rise in the future pandemics, even as
Right.
well in our daily lives. Food security. Um, Putting it in a regional context, I believe Philippines in is the top country in Southeast Asia with the most stunted children. We were even surpassed by Vietnam in the recent years.
Yeah.
So we really need to become more inclusive with our discussions, especially at the peripheries. So we have here a question from John Wilkin. So any thoughts for effective artificial coral reefs that can be installed with which can help to revive a certain body of water?
Okay, this is not
Hmm.
our campaign, but I think UPMSI is doing that, but it's transplanting. So I'm not very familiar with that, but maybe you can ask the UP Marine Science Institute about it. I believe they've been pretty successful in transplanting some corals in some areas. I don't have the know-how for that right now, but thanks for asking.
All right. I just like to go back to the scorecard, Gloria.
Yeah.
How does this work, or do you have a sample? Like, could you just like um showcase to us in a more in a closer look how this would work? Like, what's the usual process for this, and what are usually the fields or items that help the community in monitoring at the local level?
Yeah, so there are various phases. And I'm requesting Christine, who's part of our group now, to share the link to the scorecard para makita
Hmm.
nyo. We have I believe we're the first in in Asia to have the environmental impact assessment
Wow.
Statement Systems Act, or the first in Asia. Magaling tayo gumawa eh. But the weakest. Why? Kasi hindi sinusunod. Binabypass
Yeah.
yung proseso. So, the first stage is public scoping. So,
Mhm.
nasa local government code din ito na kailangan kasama dito public consultation. Get the feel of the community. Anong feeling nila dito? Apart from the legal requirement kasi under our laws, bawal yung mga destructive activities, especially in protected areas and fishery in ating municipal waters. Kaya thorough environmental impact assessment process. So, ang nangyayari, kasi technical yung batas eh, hindi naiintindihan. So, itong scorecard, laymanized the language of the law. Ano yung required para maintindihan. And uh, it went through a peer review process. For example, initially, shinare namin sa mga scientists, those who are knowledgeable about the requirements. And
Mm.
then later on, kinascade namin sa communities kung naintindihan ba nila yung lengguwahe. Kasi translate namin into Cebuano, for example. And
Mm.
then, they would say, oh, ganito pala ang batas. Ang dami palang requirements. Kasi, step by step process kung sinunod.
Mm.
So, na-check nila kung sunod or hindi. May consultation ba? In-explain ba sa kanila? Ano yung mangyari? Yung ganon. So, chine-check nila at yes or no. So, kaya, ang nangyari, talagang makita mo na hindi sila kinonsulta, which is labag sa ating konstitusyon, sa ating local government code. Tapos, may scientist din dapat na mag-prepare noong environmental impact statement, di ba? And this should be transparent. Kasi, basis for decision making ito eh. I can tell you, ayaw ibigay ng EMB sa amin. Hingi kami ng kopya. Yung sa Bulacan International Airport, humingi kami ng kopya. Email, letters. wala na daw silang kopya. Sabi ko, wow, soft in the age, in this age we are in, wala na kayong hard copies. Eh di soft copies. Ayaw kami bigyan. Pumunta talaga kami sa office nila, field office in Tarlac. Tarlac ba yun? Humingi kami ng kopya. Ganon kami kadeterminado. But we expose them as well. We have the right to know. Come on. Bakit ayaw niyo ipakita yan? So ngayon, ang EMB, meron na silang link sa AIS. For example, there's a planned reclamation in Mandaue by the local governments. Meron na kaming kopya. So, ang mangyari niyan, kung meron na kayong access, i-share nyo sa mga scientists, those who know about the impacts, para ma-comment nyo. So, that's what we did in Consolacion. Together with the other sectors, nag-comment kami, o anong mangyari doon sa mangroves na andyan? Anong mangyari dito sa fisher folk, livelihood, yung ganon. So, it went through a process. And one of the reasons, for example, na sinabi ng Environmental Management Bureau sa applicant sa Consolacion na you have not addressed the questions raised by stakeholders, including Oceana. So it matters a lot to be engaged from the very beginning, and it matters a lot na alam ng ating communities na actually the law protects them. Minamarginalize lang sila by some who have vested interest. So, ito na yung beauty, no, na makita natin ang ganda ng batas, tapos alam ng komunidad, at sila na mismo ang nag-o-orient sa miyembro ng sektor nila. Isn't that great? That's empowerment. So, this is happening now. And I hope that with this, we will have better leaders. Alam na nila ang pulso at makikinig na sila. So, yun pang ibang mga example noon. I think this was mentioned sa Pasig project na, oh my gosh, copy and paste yung EIS. Ang minention a place na wala doon sa Pasig. Even in Consolacion, yun din ang nangyari. Minention yung, I don't know, species or ano, na wala doon. Halatang sinunod, di ba? Kumopya lang. Yun ang nangyayari noon. So, kasi walang nag-question. Kaya, I think the here is talagang be engaged. At if you have the know-how, share it. Kasi much appreciated talaga yan. You know, one of the most significant moments in my life na kung magsabi ako nito, mapapaiyak pa rin ako hanggang ngayon. Isang fisher folk leader approached me and said, I never realized that the law works in our favor. In Cebuano. Ngayon ko lang na-realize na it works pala for us. So yan yung hindi mabayaran ng pera, yung feeling na, oh my God, kahit isang tao, you have done some gave meaning to his life. Ang dami, sa totoo lang. And that keeps us going actually. Ang haba ng sagot ko, ano? Pasensya na, Carlo.
Don't worry. It's it's a wonderful response. No, so I hear most of the process is participatory in nature. So it's really good to get that public engagement in terms of driving advocacy. So I'd just like to ask, in terms of approaches, or what has made Oceana so successful in translating evidence and advocacy into concrete and tangible policies or action that other climate change advocates could replicate in their specific organizations or institutions?
Yeah, well, I'm not saying you perfected it, pero yung shinare ko na using the law, some are jaded kasi eh. Andyan ang batas, hindi sinusunod, so they just give up. Kami, we make sure sundin yung batas kasi nandyan eh. So I think that's what make us different from others. We don't hesitate to go to court.
Yeah.
We don't hesitate to call the attention of anyone for accountability. That's so important eh. Ang bait kasi ng Pinoy eh. Ayaw ng ganon. They see it as adversarial. I look at it as strengthening institutions and really instituting reforms in the long run. So, importante yon. And science. I'm so happy. More scientists are now talking about it. More scientists are our partners. Noon, hirap na hirap kami kumuha ng experts para sa kaso namin. Kasi takot sila, kaibigan nila ang nasa DNR before. But ngayon, wow, amazing. I'm also amazed at kailangan i-integrate yung governance
Mm,
even in the courses of those in science para alam nila how to deal with stakeholders
mm,
and earth ethics as well. Yung communications, very important. Ilan lang kami. There are just 20 of us, but because of the beauty, the miracle of communications, apartment science and technology, ayun,
mm,
mas marami ang nakakaalam. Then never forget the constituents,
yeah.
grassroots communities, napakahalaga, and they should trust you eh. And it takes time lalo na yung mga jaded na, yung hindi naka-benefit talaga sa programs. But when they see you are sincere, then madali na lang. And they will be the most articulate defenders of their cause. Background lang kami. Yun, ganun na kagaling. And then, of course, directly influencing
Mm,
decision makers. We don't hesitate to write Malacanang.
mm,
We don't hesitate to call the attention of the office of the president because an agency is not doing its job. So we now have this FOI request, Freedom of Information. We use that to the fullest. Anti-Red Tape Act, ginamit ko na yan. Sa Cebu pa ako. Yung mga estudyante ko, nagsisend na ng demand letter sa mga agencies giving them 5-10 days to respond. So we should have all of this. Ano sayang and it's very meaningful journey. Talagang makatulog ka ng mahimbing sa gabi. Walang insomnia. Kasi alam mo you're helping also other people's lives to be better.
Going back to how important research is. So I've actually heard in the past in the Congress that it's more important to focus. You should focus first on evidence-based policies before you look at policy-based evidences.
Hmm.
So this highlights how important research is in guiding in how you should frame your policy, how you should frame your monitoring, and how this would and then you should review what has been what evidence was generated as well from your policies. Is there anything that your policy has missed? So um, there's a question here, no? As a member of a non-government organization in the province of Palawan, where fishing is one of the major sources of income of some areas, what activities can you suggest, or what activities or programs can you suggest to help the community to secure their source of income and at the same time protect the marine biodiversity?
Yeah, actually, we've partnered with several NGOs in Palawan. I can name attorney, and I'm sure the one who asked the question knows attorney Jerthy Mayo Anda. Uh, there are, my gosh, there's a special law creating the Palawan Council for Sustainable Development. Pero
Hmm.
ang daming mining, and marami pa ring issues on illegal commercial fishing. So I think it's important to connect also with or seek support from other NGOs. So ang ginawa, for example, namin, I think we did this last year, early part of last year, we called on civil society organizations for a dialogue and to ask ano bang pwede magtulungan tayo sa collaboration. So ano ba yung, like for example, commercial fishing, we can provide data on
Mm.
illegal fishing happening in their waters through the VIRS technology. And we can help even write letters. We're doing that
Yeah.
quarterly, writing
Yeah.
letters to municipal areas which are considered municipal waters which are considered as hotspot areas for illegal fishing. So depende kung ano yung gusto nila. We are open to partnership. And kung capacity training, we are doing that at the height of the pandemic. Nag-virtual kami.
Yeah.
Noon talagang in person, and Coast Guard would be there with their simulated enforcement operations na na-appreciate ng mga judges na ang hirap pala mag-enforce. So,
Yeah.
depende kung ano yung issue. Marine protected areas, kailangan we should have more of that. Do you know that 1.4% lang of our waters are covered by the uh, expanded National Integrated Protected Area System. Ang liit lang. Marine Biodiversity, ano tayo? Center of the center of marine biodiversity. 1.4% lang of our waters are protected by a national law. Hindi pa lahat nito functional. Kailangan kailangan may management plans, kailangan may coordination. So, but as I hope my presentation showed na there is hope. Talagang kailangan lang critical collaboration and with communities, show them that you are fully supportive and help each other. With technology, mas madali na lang to reach out. So, kaya natin to, as FVR would say.
Talking more about Oceana's work, I just like to I'm quite interested in knowing what in like we have cases of international like some nations crossing our borders to fish here. So what have there been any works by by Oceana on combating this?
Well, at the international level, yes. So mga distant water fleets, yung mga ganon, we reveal kung saan sila. Yon. But in the Philippines, the most we did was really show the extent of illegal fishing. I showed it to you earlier, yung maraming pula. How I wish my NGOs to take it on. In fact, maganda siyang possible campaign for Oceana. But hanggang doon lang muna ako kasi hindi pa namin kampanya. Pero maganda kasi may requirement na on vessel monitoring technology which is required international, the global level. So pwede nang gamitin. We just really have to have the commitment of our agencies to implement the law. May port state measures tayo, committed tayo to implement all of these rules pero ang hina ng implementation. Yung dagdag ko lang yung vessel monitoring rules, 52% compliant pa ang ating commercial fishing vessels, meaning 48% are illegally fishing. What are our authorities doing about it? Ang tagal na ng batas, almost 8 years. So, yung mga ganon, there has to be political will. Ipakita nyo naman.
Yeah. Like listening from our discussion, it's really we can't understate how important the mapping evidence is. Kasi that's what you'll use to lobby for these proper enforcement. You can't really go to unofficial to say we need this if you don't have the data.
Yes.
So which maybe Gloria, you could outline what the roles of the different sectors are and what sectors have to be more engaged, more involved in this policy discussion and in the climate crisis, especially for the context of your organization, of your work?
Yeah. We're thinking of having a scorecard for all national agencies. Kasi complain tayo sa inefficiency, the bureaucratic apathy. So, i-project namin yan among civil society organizations. I-scorecard natin, evaluate natin how they are performing. Kasi evidence-based dapat, di ba? So, this might just change the mindsets of those in the bureaucracy. Hindi kami favorite, lalo na yung dating administration ng BIFAR. Kasi pinipressure talaga namin to implement the law. With the new director, we hope he's really sincere in, revocation, cancellation of licenses. There's so many repeat offenders sa ating fisheries code as amended. Isa lang ang na-revoke na license. Bakit ganon? So they really have to shape up. The EU is still looking at us. We're still under the lens of the EU. If we are truly enforcing all these strong measures to fight illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing, baka ma-red card na tayo, hindi na tayo maka-export ng isda. because we are not doing our job. Andiyan na yung Republic Act 10654. So I guess this is directed to the Department of Agriculture and the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources. There are many people in those agencies who are really committed, pero the leadership has to be very certain kung saan niya papuntahin yung direksyon. If we want food security, ayusin natin. Implement the laws. No fear, no favor. And then Department of Environment and Natural Resources. Why? Principal agency din sila to protection ng ating environment, mangroves, name it, uh, wildlife. Pero parang kulang ng coordination within the agencies. We attended a congressional hearing. Oh my gosh, you can see the exasperation in the congressman who headed the committee. Sabi niya, kasi 4 agencies of the same department, hindi man lang nag-uusap, iba-iba ang position paper. And hindi lang on one area, on other areas. Sabi ng chair, kung ako yung head ninyo, na disciplinary action ko na kayo. So these are really realities na kailangan na if we see a problem, we offer our support, our help. So we call the attention of the Secretary of the Environment. Kasi 1.4% lang ang protected areas. Kung ganito tayo kabagal or walang coordination within the department, paano pa natin makamit yung mas marami pang marine protected areas to be able to be more resilient in addressing or finding solutions to climate crisis we are facing. The head of the environment secretary is a climate change expert. Alam niya yun. So, kailangan ayusin within the bureaucracy. Then, isa din yan, Department of the Interior and Local Government, ang galing ni DILG Secretary Anyo. Talaga, for me, he was the best DILG Secretary. Why? Because he really implemented the law and guided the local government units. Hindi siya politiko. Talagang, for the first time siguro, medyo takot ang mga LGU sa DILG. Sana si Secretary Abalos should also be the same, na talagang, I know, nutritional champion ang Mandaluyong when he was mayor. So sana gawin niyang programa ito. At i-embed sa lahat ng mga local government units. So there are reasons, we are here to support. Lahat ng kampanya namin, sa totoo lang, is really aimed to helping government perform its mandates. We don't ask for funding from government. We are independent. And I guess that's our strength. Hindi kami takot kasi we know na tumutulong kami sa gobyerno at sa mga kababayan natin. Yeah.
Before we proceed, I just like to note na talong-tala tayo ni Sis Nadia sa kanyang background. Totoong dagat pala.
Yes, ganda.
Hello, Virgil. Thank you very much for joining us today. So, okay, there's another question in the chat box. Does your agency review best practices of other countries with similar situation like ours that have success stories of protecting their marine diversity? Maybe we can also learn a lot from them.
Yeah, I'm talking about Oceana as an international non-government organization. So I'm a member of the executive committee. So these are headed by various country leaders in all the offices we are in. We have just also established UK as an office. So we know of best practices. Naiinggit ka nga kung malaman mo, buti pa sila, meron ng ginagawa to eliminate plastic. Like Canada, for example, Norman, you're Canada. The government declared plastic as a toxic substance. So ang laki ng implications noon, 'di ba? So and then there are we conduct several expeditions. So in the EU, for example, palaging may scientific expeditions and in other countries as well. And then yung data na ginather, yun na yung basis for pushing for declaration of more marine protected areas. So we did that in Benham. We helped provide the technology. We're now doing that in Panaon. And sana with more bureaucratic efficiency sa mga ahensya natin, mas marami pa ang mapa-protect natin. So yes, we are very much aware of what's happening in other parts of the country and other parts of the world. And that also gives us the motivation to also make sure na marami ding best practices natin na pwede ring masunod, ma-follow nila or ma-emulate. For example, yung mga scorecards natin, malaking bagay din yan sa ibang parte ng mundo na katulad sa atin na governance is still a big issue.
Yeah. I just like to also try to understand, no, what the political structure is for the environmental sector. I understand that the health system in the Philippines is it's not actually implemented by the Department of Health. It's actually the LGUs who implement it, being decentralized, having a decentralized structure. Does the environmental sector have the same structure wherein the LGUs are actually implementing or enforcing the environmental laws?
Yes, so actually ito yung bago naming approach. Hindi actually bago because we've worked with mga alliances. So now we're really mainstreaming it. There are several local governments, for example, in Northern Samar na nagko-contribute sila para mapaayos yung karagatan nila. Isn't that great? And Samar is exactly one of the considered as one of the poorest provinces. But tulong-tulong sila. So we're helping them because they are aware na it's their mandate but they need the technical support of national agencies. Kaya we welcome talaga ng mga coastal cities and municipalities having this science-based fisheries management area system where mag-congregate ang mga important stakeholders, government, national government agencies, local governments, industry, communities, fisher folks. So meron na tayong ganun na structure. But the local governments, by forming alliances, support each other. Matulungan talaga sila. And we are doing that. We're looking at alliances now among local governments. There are several champions na you'd be very proud as a Filipino na may ginagawa talagang maayos para sa ating karagatan.
There's a very interesting question here. I'd also like to ask the same. How did the COVID-19 pandemic, with the pandemic restrictions, travel restrictions, and all, affect the agency's cause, especially during the lockdowns, with all those restrictions? Did it? And I would also like to ask a similar question. And how did it affect the DNR's response as well to combating the climate crisis?
Okay. Marami akong ma-share nito. Well, kami sa Oceana, I think we're privileged na meron talaga kami. We were prepared for the pandemic. We have our own sets of laptops. So, nung sinabi na work from home, we all had the essential equipment, no? But I know government had difficulty doing that. So what we did, we reached out to the government and we told them before, if I may mention, na actually pwede nang we use the web for our communications, for our events. I think it was Oceana, one of the first to have a webinar because we immediately adapted. Ready na kami. We have the technology, we have the equipment, but some had difficulty. So yung nakikita natin na yung iba nahihirapan. But if you're ready, then you go for it. But of course, on our third year sa pandemic, marami na talaga, marami ng webinars and also. So kailangan talaga marunong mag-adapt ang mga ahensya nito. And we offered support. And so nauso na nga yung webinars. We did that. And it was also during the pandemic when we really reached out to all the artisanal fisher folks. They learned to use computers ng mga anak nila. Yung not computer but cell phones. So natuto silang gumamit ng teknolohiya and nagwe-webinar kami using technology. And we set up e-groups with them para ma-avail nila talaga ang benefits of the technology. So it's ironic that the COVID pandemic brought us closer to the stakeholders concerned. But of course, nothing beats
Uh-huh.
having this in-person contact
Mm,
with the various stakeholders. So we were one of the first to really come up with webinars, reaching out to government agencies
mm,
and stakeholders. Yun.
mhm. So the pandemic really brought some challenges, but also at the same time brought some opportunities for more technologically literate public engagement, no? Would
Yes.
also like to ask ah the COVID-19 pandemic has really been at the center of the discussion in terms of the climate crisis. Um, some people say that we were able to uh, reduce carbon emissions. Sorry, I'm not very familiar with the data, but I just like to ask regarding there's a lot of biomedical waste being generated from the pandemic,
Yes.
especially the face mask. The amount of face masks we use globally per day
That's
is
right.
is an understatement. So, what are the discussions in your community regarding the future impacts of this, or or if there are already impacts of this for um for the world's oceans, since most of the plastic waste are expelled into the sea. Um, like I we could possibly see a similar scenario for these biomedical waste, for these face masks to get there as well.
Yeah. Totoo. You know what we did? Nag-lawsuit kami because under the law, it's very clear that the National Solid Waste Management Commission should come up with a list of non-environmentally acceptable products and packaging. So we filed the lawsuit after, of course, sending a demand letter to already come up with a list na dapat kasama ang plastics. Kasi this is one way of really reducing no plastic waste in our ocean, but we cannot do anything about the equipment, the sa medical what we are using now. Kaya with more reason, yung mga hindi kailangan na gamitin, dapat mawala na, hindi na gagamitin. So actually, the National Solid Waste Management Commission, which is the policy-making body under Republic Act 9003, which is the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000, is mandated to come up with a list of non-environmentally acceptable products and packaging. So, kailan to? My gosh, 20 years ago pa, na dapat annually that commission should come up with a list. And it is never done so. Kaya we sued the National Solid Waste Management Commission last year for that. Kasi that would have helped a lot na i-reduce ang plastic debris in our ocean. So it's the case is pending, so I cannot talk about it, but we really have to be more sustainable in our ways kasi hindi natin mapagbawal yung mga plastic ano what we are using now no to address the COVID-19 situation, but yun namang hindi na kailangan, such as yung the plastic spoons, the cutleries, the glass, plastic
Mm,
bags. Hindi na kailangan yun eh. In fact, do you know that the National Solid Waste Management Commission came up with, I think, 7 single-use plastic items that are banned from being used by government. Meron ganun. But which agency is complying? Ay
mm,
gusto namin, entire country yan dapat. Hindi, kasi number 3 na nga tayo ang ranking natin is most number of single-use
yeah.
plastics. So, and we are a mega-diversity country. We are being affected. So, yan yung isang So, the case is pending. Now, the Supreme Court issued the writ of kalikasan, writ of continuing mandamos, at It's now lodged with the Court of Appeals. It's a pending case.
Mm.
But we still do a lot of advocacy work, reaching out to the University of the Philippines, to various agencies, to reduce single-use plastics in our midst. Pwede kaya naman. That's all.
All right. Again, I would like to remind those who have questions to put them in the chat. So um, we might be wrapping up in a few. So just to continue the discussion, no, sa school, would just like to ask regarding what has been more effective, benefit schemes, or reward schemes, or those where there's sanctions. What has worked in terms of compliance? What works better?
Ideally, yung dalawa, di ba? At saka,
Mm.
in all our laws, there are always incentives. But
Mm.
we are
Yeah.
not really, sanay tayo na hindi sumunod sa batas. Sorry ha. If it's a sad indictment of the mindset, and
Mm.
we allow the violators to get away with it. For example, Republic Act 9003, ang ganda ng incentives niyan at its inception. Yung talagang they can use it as a tax deduction kung ano yung ginawa nilang programa to promote management of solid waste. But in our country, we need to instill discipline. Kaya andyan eh. For example, this non-environmentally acceptable products and packaging, the commission has been tasked. Now, 1 year after enactment of the law, the National Solid Waste Management Commission has to come up with a list of non-environmentally acceptable products and packaging. And they never did. That's why we sued them. Hindi lang Oceana, but other non-government organizations, the youth, marami, diverse, nagsued. There are around 50 of us, including former Senator Serge Osmeña, because he was one of the authors of the law, RA 9003, na fully implement the law. Kasi, so, sa Filipinos, ang importante, we use both, the soft and hard approach. Kasi masyado mahilig tayong mag-test kung kayang i-implement. And that's sad. That's a sad indictment of our mentality. Na pag strong ang implementation, like we used to have MMDA, Bayani, Fernando, na malakas na implementation. So parang biglang, oops, malinis kasi takot na ma-sanction. Pero sana as matured people, we do it ourselves na alam mong hindi dapat kasi nakakasira, hindi lang sa sarili mo, pero sa future ng anak mo. We should do our best. We should do our part. So, sana we have this mindset of sustainability embedded deeply in our psyche. Alam ko before, in the olden times, wala tayong garbage trucks kasi karamihan, maybe 90% of our, or almost 100% or 90% of our household waste were compostable. But now we have plastics. Sarili, name it, we have it. And some are very harmful to the environment. How many are practicing segregation? How many had been imposed penalties because they were not complying? Napaka-soft natin sa enforcement. And that has been detrimental to the future of the young generation. Kaya magtulungan tayo. We owe the future to give the future generation, or the present and future generation, the sustainable future that they deserve. Kailangan ayusin natin ngayon.
That's wonderful. Okay. If there are no more questions, possibly, Sis Golly, maybe you could, if you have any final remarks, to communicate with our audience and with, um, as a general message as well.
Yes, I know yung audience natin ay mga part of the solution. So we really need to, be more in numbers, mga stewards, to help. Yan ang word help make our leaders and communities understand the importance of embedding sustainability in everything that we do. Napaka-challenging, lalo na sa Pilipinas, because, some are able to get away with it, but napakalakas ng batas natin. Our scientists are now more vocal than ever in ensuring science in decision making. We have empowered youth. Andyan na. So, kailangan lang better coordination. And I thank our broads, Upsilon, for providing us with this platform to be able to share what has been happening in our country. And we need to coordinate more and better para mapaayos yung ating governance landscape. It's really a governance issue that we are facing. We have more than enough laws, but it's the implementation which is really a scourge. So we need to monitor citizens up to be more empowered to monitor and really be part of the decision making process. Yan ang aking
Mm.
wish sa ating mga kababayan. Let's all be empowered citizens
Mm.
para mapaayos natin ang ating planeta at ang Pilipinas. Maraming salamat for this platform.
Thank you very much, Sis Golly, for that very wonderful presentation and open forum. I hope we learned a lot today. So today we learned about Oceana's contributions to protecting the world's oceans, and we've learned how important advocacy is to being. It has to be proactive. You have to be proactive. It has to be communicated effectively, both scientific and legal information, to not only policy actors but as well as to the general public. Though it can be argued that the general public is part of the policy making or policy as are part of policy actors or policy drivers, no? And we've learned today that the Philippines is one of the world's is a really good policy are really good policy formulators. Filipinos are really good policy formulators, but we are challenged enforcers. So we really have to do better in terms of enforcing our policies, our really well-written policies, so that we can really make an impact in terms of protecting the world's oceans and really preventing or really stop the progression of the climate crisis. So again, thank you very much, Sgoli. So this concludes our new talk today. Please visit upsiloncan eventbrite.com for the calendar of events and for more information of this initiative. Again, thank you very much, and we hope that today's youth talk inspired you to act and be part of the solution. Have a good day and night from all parts of the globe. Thank you very much.
Maraming salamat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sis Golly.
My
Awesome.
pleasure. Let's be in touch. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Welcome, everybody, for this short presentation. I have one word of caution. Don't let yourself sink down and feel depressed when I show these facts of how much damage the climate crisis is doing all around the world. It's important for us to realize how dangerous this is. This is the fluctuating concentrations of carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere. It appears that our atmosphere looks thicker than it is. But as you can see, that's actually CO2, which is about 5 to 7 kilometers thick. Our atmosphere is so thin, you could drive an automobile straight up in the air at highway speeds, and you'd get to the top of that blue line in 5 to 7 minutes. So that's why temperatures are going up so dramatically, and the pattern is a little bit hard to miss. So this is the graph showing the global average surface temperature anomalies every year from 1880 to 2021. The red dots here indicate the cities with the most anomalous extreme heat event ever observed on Earth since records began 2 centuries ago. All-time record in the southern hemisphere was set in the middle of January 2022 at 123 Fahrenheit or 51 Celsius. This year, the Indian subcontinent had the hottest temperatures in at least 122 years. Worldwide, these are all the high temperature records that were broken in 2021. Remember that more than 70% of Earth is covered by the ocean, and that's significantly 93% of all that extra heat that's being trapped by the global warming pollution is going into the ocean. And when it absorbs all that heat, it has a lot of consequences for those of us who live on land. The heat content in the ocean has been going up by an astonishing amount. As you'll see here in the bottom right, the heat buildup is going 2,000 meters down into the ocean. Half of this has been in the last 20 years, and it's still going up. We all learned this when we were much younger about the water cycle, starting with the evaporation of the ocean, and then precipitation, and then runs back to the sea. When we get this huge increase in water vapor in the sky, we have atmospheric rivers. So here's an example of an atmospheric river. To your lower left is Hawaii, and 2,300 kilometers away, it goes to Northern California. So the extra heat that's trapped by the global warming pollution also sucks the moisture out of the soil and makes the droughts hit more quickly and dry deeper and last longer. Here are the areas that are deemed uninhabitable today on Earth. You can see lots of the Southeast Asian archipelago, the Philippines, Laos, and large parts of Africa and South America and Central America. Before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the number of climate refugees outnumbered the refugees from all the wars and conflicts by 4 to 1. 10 million people in the previous year. The health consequences of heat stress are actually larger than the health consequences of any other part of the climate crisis. And it affects people who are especially vulnerable. Now, we overuse synthetic nitrogen fertilizers, which was invented in Germany 120 years ago. 90% of the synthetic nitrogen fertilizer is fossil gas, and it's over applied. And it comes down to the rivers, to the sea, it feeds the growth of algae, and then when the microbes eat the algae, they consume all the oxygen in the process, and that's what creates dead zones. In 2015, harmful algal bloom closed fisheries from Mexico to Alaska due to high levels of neurotoxins. So these were neurotoxins or sea nuts observed in the Sea of Marmara in Istanbul, Turkey in 2021. Climate change is affecting marine vertebrates and many other forms of life in the ocean, whose populations have declined 49% on average from 1970 to 2012. The fish protein is declining, and the location of fish population is changing. They don't always move poleward. They move laterally to find cooler water or deeper. But the fish populations are moving quite significantly. These are ocean heat wave days, and they're getting more severe. As you can see, they're growing in intensity from 1900 to 2018, and it's the extreme event that often drive the harmful patterns of change. Unexpected results come up. S- uh, Sea turtle sex is determined by the temperature of water. And at the northern edge of the Great Barrier Reef, now 99% of the baby green sea turtles are now female. And as we have seen this year once again, the Great Barrier Reef take another hit. 30% loss since 2016. In March 2022, the Great Barrier Reef suffered yet another severe bleaching event. You will hear people say ocean acidification is the evil twin of the climate crisis. What scientists means when they say that it's all the CO2 that we put into the atmosphere, a great deal of it, about 35% or so, is absorbed in the ocean. So the plastic crisis is connected to the climate crisis. The annual production of plastics, as you can see, is going up. Emissions from the manufacturing of plastics will outpace emissions from coal by 2030. So here are all the plastics ever made in history. And here's the amount that has been recycled. And here's the amount that has been burned. And here's the amount that goes to the ocean, to landfills, and the sides of roads and rivers. And this is the amount that's still in use. So recycle does not solve this problem. It's a sham for any company to argue that it does. So we need bioplastics. I won't spend time now to go on what's going on to replace this stuff with naturally biodegradable material, but we need to do that. There's still hope. A lot of global companies have made a pledge to go 100% renewable. You will find what they have in common mostly is that they're consumer facing businesses and they're hearing from you. They're hearing from us. And we need to ratchet up that pressure on all businesses and all investors. Almost three quarters of all global emissions all over the world are now coming from countries that have set net zero target. Now we need to get a hold of these countries and companies accountable to the pledges they have made. So join those who are using their voices and their votes and their choices to fight for their future. Speak truth to power like your world depends on it. Because your world does depend on it. So thank you. Let's get this done.